everyone. Welcome to Fire Shrike. Uh, we get the for our our sort of intro here. We get a little bit of we get a scene of of Twinkle and company, the Tempest, like being escorted to the capital planet of Korzom in the Netshadara system, and we see them sort of like riding in a transport vehicle with a drow elf woman in a very sharp looking suit. Um, and you see, and then we get a bit of Vesa walking through a base with her people in tow, just firing people, um,
Huh.
just firing them. And we get a bit of Zai and Burnward sort of talking to Chunderbucket Charlie. Uh, and we kind of go back and like so as Chunderbucket Charlie is sort of laying it out for them in terms of don't care how you go about it, but you're probably gonna need to raise an army at some point. The this is there and the we get them kind of grabbing fishing poles, getting ready to go out through some kind of shimmering door. We also get Ashira, along with the Unannihilated and company, rolling up to Jake Dawson and Kolnak's group of sort of support team that is just sort of waiting for Vesa, and then we get a ship appear like the appearance of a ship it jumps to the appearance of a ship that is just strafing runs across the top of this base, and a whole bunch of hang gliders coming out of the back, and we see like three Ifrits, one of which is an alternate version of Rulia, who's got you know who's a lot more buff, like physically more buff, uh, sort of more muscular, more of a sort of bodybuilder's build than we're used to seeing, along with two other Ifrit who appear to be like lightly armed, um, potentially, sort of like operatives of different sort, and then several who are obviously, um, warriors of some type, various degrees of weaponry on them and armor and whatnot. They look pretty rugged and whatnot. And we see them sort of like landing on top of the building and setting charges and blowing a hole in the roof, which they all drop down. They all sort of like do the thing or dropping down too. And we get like the reaction from the sub basement, the sort of standoff of Vesa and Shofo and Roloma as they, watch the monitors and see this all happening. And and there's this and we get the comment like that's bad news. She will burn everything here to the ground if she's not stopped. And then we get like the Fire Shrike logo. And when we come back in on Twinkle and Company. So you guys are in the you guys are in the capital city of Corzum Prime. So and you've kind of been told, hey, we're sort of taking your requests under advisement. While you're here, um, you're free to, go to sort of the market districts and places like that, but you may want to steer clear of some of the other districts and certainly steer clear of any sort of military installations. But we get Twinkle and Company on the somewhere within the confines of the Tempest. Twinkle, where are you? Where do you have your crew at? And what does this look like here?
He's probably got everybody in the heck. Um, He's
All right.
debriefing pretty much everybody, going over uh, more or less. All right, what did they do to my ship while I was gone?
Uh, there, as far as you can tell, who do you have for engineer there? Who's your engineer?
Engineer is
Actually, here's a better question. Who who do you have checking on this? Who do you have looking for at this?
well. As soon as we get back, honestly, he would trust himself.
Okay, so
I like
give
it.
me perception check.
Okay,
All right.
let's see. How's that? Ugh. Okay, well, not much I can do about that there.
Well, you do find a couple of surveillance devices, but you have the impression that the way where they were at and what have you, they would have obviously been able to fool, you know, somebody of lesser talent, like a younger you would have missed them, or a younger anybody or less experienced anybody on your crew might have missed it. Essentially, if you were to take on like just some maybe probably like your basic um, grunt crew, like the any members that you've got there that aren't command level crew, like your sort of first, second levels, they would have missed it, um, like easily. But like your command level crew, you get the impression that most of them, at least the perceptive one, more perceptive ones, probably would have been able to find these. But you are also fairly certain that whoever set these would have known that.
Sure.
Because the reputation of the Fire Shrike and having a competent crew with a lot of technical expertise on board would, you know, would lead you to believe that anybody with any kind of like intelligence would assume that at least one of you would find it, fairly easily.
Hmm. Fair. So, yeah. Um, I mean, that's one thing. Did they actually take the time to interview the crew, or was that just bluster?
They did take time to interview the crew and talk to everybody. It was sort of like the questions had a lot were very the questions tended to be about like what your business here was, where you'd come from, who your connections were. That they were pretty intent on finding out everything they could. But there were also a lot of like for those of you who are perceptive, you notice that there were a lot of like verbal traps in there, like a lot of logical traps and verbal traps. Your lower end, crew members probably fell for every one of them,
Hmm.
but I'm pretty sure you don't tell them it nearly as much as they'd want the dro would actually want to know. They
Sure.
probably wouldn't necessarily have the useful information unless you're just like, nope, we're an open book. Everything we know on command level, everybody knows.
Hmm.
Um, which I just damn it would require you specifically putting out the effort to make sure everybody knows because big enough ship that that's not always going to just make its way around.
Yep.
At least not accurately anyway.
Right.
But they're like it was all kinds of stuff that you would expect coming into the situation, coming into like a system full of paranoid dro elves. You, it was all the kinds of questions that you were expecting. Most of you who are command level or command level NPCs or command crew PCs would have probably not necessarily fallen for much of it. Um, and for the most part, they haven't interviewed most of their like the player characters yet. Um, they've they haven't gotten to that,
Sure.
mostly because you guys went in front of the council
Mm-hmm.
to talk to them. So they were the council members were the matriarchs were assessing you as you were talking to them anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's fine.
but yeah, but you can't be 100% certain that there's not more, sort of listening devices or anything like that. But it seems like their key, but it does point to the fact that their key motivation right now tends to be to try to find out as much about you guys and what you're doing here as possible.
Right. Well, it looks like we are going to be meeting, basically just kind of going over, all right, this is what we're doing while we're here. We've got a couple different things for people to check up on. I'm assuming Xander is going to go do his thing with the libraries.
Yep.
Obviously, he's going to have Isaki and Bazik with him. Uh, let's see.
Rex.
What's that?
And Rex.
Why?
Rex always follows those two because he doesn't trust them, and Zai told him to.
And Twinkle told him not to.
You did, didn't you? It's been a while since I've thought about Rex. Continue.
What?
Oh, no, go ahead.
And Twinkle told him not to.
That's dangerous, huh?
Well, in that case, when Xander dies and the whole universe is destroyed because of those two,
Guess
it'll be
what?
fine.
Guess what? You get to say I told you so.
I won't do it.
And then Vesa becomes King Zai. Just
Well, in that multiverse, yeah.
Moving on.
Okay, yeah.
We had 3 groups that we had kind of been turned on to. The Crystal Reliquary, I'm thinking, is actually one of those, and not just another name for something world-ending around here. Did I really mean to put Oxyx tongue, or did I mean to say onyx tongue?
Probably Onyx tongue.
Yeah, probably. In the Court de Lille Cotre were the 3. I'm just trying to remember what they were. It's been a little while. Trying to think. Burn. Did you have any leads specifically you were going to chase around here? Oh, yes, we did. Potentially. The people that can help you create more of that poison you found are here.
Yeah.
In the Court, the little Kutra.
Mm-hmm.
Are they like a secret society, or are they more open?
From what from what Agent Solness could tell you about him, was from what he understood, Court the little Kutra was technically an outlaw cult like following, but the Netch Sidara has never properly put the effort into fully destroying them. Like, they've had wars with noble houses and goblin tribes and the like over the years, but Court the Little Kutra functions as sort of like they're a cult and an outlaw organization all in one, known for like their abilities with plants, fungal poisons, and the like. But their their uh, their place is sort of like a fringe society sort of thing. Like they don't have like one major base of operations inside of city limits anywhere. They may have like agents or whatever spread throughout
Yeah.
that deal
No,
their drugs, logically speaking, but being that they're more fringe and they're more focused on funguses and drugs and poisons and stuff, proper Netch Sidara goes to them, probably goes to them when they need stuff like that, but otherwise because they're not ruled by a matriarch or even by a Drow house.
Well, basically, no. They're not. They're not going to be easy to find because they're most.
You can't you can't look them up in the fairy fire pages.
Right.
No, but I would assume that you, a doctor of some renown and with connections, after all, would be able to at least find some way to get there. What do you think?
Connection with Netshidar, huh?
Well,
Yeah,
your
nobody
specialty is
really.
poison after all.
My specialties are neurochemistry, which yes, could be poisons.
So, I guess we're
And
just going to leave that alone. That's fine.
no, he'll go for it. And immunology, he'll just have to go around asking about probably fungus in general, because that can have some effects on neurochemistry. And he probably
Probably.
has enough credentials and is maybe well enough that he can actually be like, hey, yes, I'm actually a doctor and a scientist interested in fungus, and I haven't seen much from Netshidar kind of thing. And then
Sure.
hopefully by doing that, they'll approach him.
All right. So you're gonna try to track down the Korthulul Kutra then? Is that what I'm hearing?
Kind of. He's gonna try to draw them to him, but going
Right.
around and asking about fungus and like stuff like that, finding whoever was a specialist on the different types of fungi in the area, stuff like that. Hopefully they'll
Alright.
approach him.
At the very least, they'll smell a whale. At worst, they'll know that we're looking for them.
Yeah.
So.
Twinkle is probably going to be tied up with the politics here very soon and is going to have to start putting something together to stave them off as long as he can. We need somebody to, well, I mean, the trails led us here. We need to find something, anything about the sifter. I just don't have
That's
a
what
good
I'm
idea
doing
where
in the
to start.
library.
That's what I'm assuming is going to be, yeah, where that leads us.
Alright.
So,
Are you sending anyone with Dr. Byrne, or is Oliver going by himself?
well, of course, every good bodyguard needs every good doctor needs at least one bodyguard or a nurse. Anyways, we're going
I
to
changed into my nurse's outfit.
I was literally about to ask.
yeah, we could send Mahala. That's a good idea. I like that.
Okay. I hop on your collar.
Oh, jeez, that's right. It's a thing.
And what's that little creature on your shoulder? My bodyguard.
That is quite the. I'm picturing that in my head. I like that. All right.
That's funny.
Just trying to think. Yeah, it's at the end of the day, things tend to find us as opposed to us finding them. I think what happens is we're just going to beat around the bush and see what flies out.
All right. Well, I think let's go ahead and we'll start with Xander. So you want to go to the Great Archives, right? Or are you gonna try to hit up some of these smaller libraries, or are you going straight to the Great Archives?
I want to go to the big one.
Okay. All right. Well, everything costs money around here, so or it like once you get to the Great Archives, there is there is an office you got to go through. It's like the entry, the Dro elf, the male that's standing behind the counter is like entry is 100 credits. Research is 100 credits per book, 50 credits an hour. He's like, you can check out. He says he says, well, I guess it would be more like data files. File access to files depending on what file you're looking for. Starts at 50 credits, and it goes from there. It's 50 credits per hour for study time. The the terminals inside are all slotted for cred chips, so you're and are slotted for cred chips and for other bank routing information. So he says, but I'll need the 100 credits for the entry for each of you up front.
I gotta pay for you two lackeys or what? Oh, guess so.
Never pay for them.
Isaki is like, just looks at you and
For you.
she's just like, why do you think this one went to fought in that gladiatorial match back in the Vescarium? And pulls out 200 credits to pay for her and Bazik.
Oh, good. Frees up my money for all my research that I have to do that I'm apparently going to spend a lot. All right, here's
No,
one.
you're a research maven, sir. It takes you 1/4 of the time. You're going to save so much money.
the
Forgot about that. I do it in
Level
half the
12.
time.
Yeah,
A quarter.
once they pay and they go through. Once you pay, like they let you the door, like there's a buzzing at the door, and it whisks open with like just a whoosh, and you look inside, and there are rows and rows of terminals, and you can see like sort of here and there lining the walls. You can see some of the servers like data banks and what have you. You're assuming the vast majority are on some sub level or something because there's not enough here to contain the kind of information they're boasting they have necessarily. But these might actually just be like process running, servers that run processes and what have you. The real like memory banks are probably in a sub level that the terminals are connected to. But you see a